Happy to. Hello, National Readers. Thank you very much for joining us on a live stream here. We're here at day 3 of SNP conference. Things have pretty much just wrapped up. John Swinney gave his address a little while ago. I'm here with my colleague, James Walker. Hello. James, let's just get straight into it. You were in the room for Swinney's speech. What was the kind of mood in there? What was the feeling around the speech that you got from it?
Well, I think, I mean, of course, when the party leader comes on and the First Minister comes on, the energy is always a little bit higher for these sorts of events. You know, I think a lot of people are sort of waiting for that throughout the day. It's the last thing before conference ends, and of course, compared to sort of past years like 2018, the hall wasn't as full. But I thought the atmosphere was actually was quite positive. I mean, the speech, it didn't have an enormous amount of policy announcements. If you remember the last conference, Humza Yousaf made a series of announcements, including the council tax freeze and the Scottish Government bond, which I think surprised a lot of people. And there weren't any big policy announcements. Although that one thing to note to our listeners, this is before the programme of government on Tuesday. So I think that that may come on in a couple of days' time.
Yeah, that's potentially had an impact. James, can you talk to everyone, sorry, about quite a lovely moment early on before we kind of delve into some more of the finer points where Swinney paid tribute to his wife. I think it was quite a nice moment, regardless of anybody's thoughts on any political party. It was quite nice to see him pay tribute to his wife who and the sacrifices that she's made to allow him to be First Minister. I think it was, as I say, regardless of your thoughts or political leanings, it was quite a nice moment.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I think whoever you subscribe to politically or whatever side you're on the constitutional debate, I think there is a recognition that when you take a position like First Minister, there's an enormous amount of sacrifice. But it's not just sacrifice on the part of someone who is First Minister; it's also their family members, and that's something that John really outlined early on, paying tribute to his wife, Elizabeth, who has multiple sclerosis. And it was quite an emotional moment. I could see. I mean, I was relatively close, but not sort of right next to him. But I could see, I could see tears in his eyes as he sort of looked over, and there was a nice wee standing ovation. So definitely, I think that was a nice moment. For sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And for anyone that hasn't, that either didn't see any of the speech, head over to thenational.scot and you can read the entire thing. Or if you have a look on our social media channels, then James did manage to get a video of that moment. It was quite nice. James, one person has asked you, it might be worth you taking a seat because I think you're sort of swinging around back and forth there.
That's more than fair. I'm a wanderer. I wander. I traipse about.
You have been sat down for quite a while. James, let's talk a little bit about the conference more widely. I mean, you've obviously only been here today, but this is probably the first conference in a little while where the SNP are hurting after what happened at the recent election. What's your kind of overarching takeaway from this conference, and what do you think the SNP will take away?
Yeah, I mean, I think what this conference was all about is to project, I think, some strength, but also communicate that, you know, if lessons are learned, or that we're trying to reflect on what happened, obviously at the general election, and you could see that in the speech as well. That was very much what I think John was trying to communicate, was that those lessons were learned, and a lot of it was also about a move when it comes to independence, a move away from sort of looking at process, and we've heard this many times, but moving away from the how and more to the why of independence, and you could see that a lot in his speech. I think the part of the speech, other than the emotional moment with to do with his wife, I think the part that members responded to the most was when he basically promised that that Scots will see India as urgent and essential at the next election. Sort of going back to that why, and I think that was a big part of the conference was. Making sure that there's that reflection and to sort of move forward to the future.
Yeah. So just a reminder for everyone as to sort of what happened over the past 3 days. A kind of quick summary. That the main thing on Friday was the party's internal election review, where they sort of took stock of everything that happened last month and looked to change that, I guess, and look to how they can improve when it comes to 2026. Seemed relatively positive from what we heard. It was behind closed doors, so it's hard to say too much, but from the former MPs that we spoke to, it seemed to go relatively well. James, another key point that I wanted to ask about was John Swinney opened his speech with the sort of reiterating the calls for a ceasefire in Palestine. You spoke to Angus Robertson earlier today. Can you talk people through a little bit about how that's been present at the conference? There's obviously been some protests outside as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly been something that was present even today. As I was walking in, there were two sets of protesters. One of them was anti-abortion protesters with some pretty awful signs ahead of the motion that was debated when it comes to enshrining the right to abortion in a future Scottish constitution, Scottish independent Scottish constitution. But there are also Gaza protesters as well, pro-Palestinian protesters calling for Angus Robertson to resign. I'm sure most of our viewers here have heard about the meeting that Angus had with the deputy ambassador to Israel a couple of weeks ago, and that's still a matter of debate, and one that was definitely present, because I mean, it is a fact that the SNP and members are extremely passionate about the issue of Gaza. And this is obviously the first big meeting that they're having all together, and with a lot of party officials. So I think that was always going to be a big topic. And I mean, there were rumors. It didn't happen in the end during the speech. I think perhaps Angus made the right decision to very quickly apologize right at the start of his speech. I mean, we were hearing rumors, weren't we, Adam, that there was going to be outs, or that there were going to be potentially even a sort of more of a protest during a speech. So we were sort of half expecting that. We heard rumors, but sometimes journalist rumors are just that. So that will come to pass.
Yeah, exactly. A couple of other things that happened today, folks that you can catch up on the website. We spoke to the representative from Plaid Cymru, Luke Fletcher. He came up from the Senedd to give his speech. He very kindly gave us a few minutes of his time after that to speak about the challenges that Plaid Cymru are facing and trying to convince people of Welsh independence. I think down there, polls have it generally between sort of 25 and 35% for yes in the last few months. Obviously, polls can vary, and you always take them with a pinch of salt, as politicians love saying, but that is kind of where we're at with that. And on the Palestine protest, I spoke with Shirley-Ann Somerville. Again, she gave us a few minutes of her time. That's available on the national.scot. And she did admit that they have to kind of regain trust with people who that is an important issue for. James, just before we go, because I know that you still have a little bit to finish off before we all head home from conference, can you talk a little bit more about that motion about enshrining the right to an abortion and what exactly that meant? Because I think that was quite an important one today.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think it was off the back of, it was a recognition that, a lot of these rights that are sort of taken as a bit of a given aren't always a given. And the whole basis, I think, of this motion was a recognition of what happened in the US when it comes to the rolling back of Roe v. Wade and the rolling back of abortion rights for in a number of states in the United States. So it was basically a recognition that, enshrining this in the Constitution in a future independent Scotland's Constitution would be a way of to really enshrine it, sort of to guarantee it further off the back of that. And obviously it comes off the back of the buffer zone legislation, which has passed, what was it, 2 months ago? Was it
something like that? Yeah, very, very recently anyway.
Yeah, pretty recently. So sort of off the back of that as well. But I think it's about sort of, it's a commitment. Obviously, it's not something that can be done currently, but it's further pushing that.
Yeah, I suppose, James, just one final thing to reflect on is that I suppose with this conference, time will tell really how successful it's been, because so much of it seemed about, all the words. Whenever I spoke to anyone, it all seemed about being reflective and about being constructive. All these words that we'll only really find out how effective this has been, in the lead up to 2026, probably.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I think no one was under any illusions that this was going to be an entirely positive, joyous occasion. Yeah. I mean, obviously, it's a lot of people who get along, so it's not sort of, it's people having coffees and having nice chats as well, as is the case in any party conference. But there was certainly that element of reflection, but I think that's also a question of responsibility. I mean, I think that if members came here and saw officials sort of, business as usual, they wouldn't be very happy. But at the same token, obviously, I think a lot of people wouldn't want to be sort of overly pessimistic. Given, some people say that the first past the post flattered Labour in Scotland. What was it, 38 to 33%? But obviously, a lot of seats lost, and no one can disagree with that. So certainly reflective. No doubt.
Fantastic. Well, James, thank you so much for joining me, and thank you to everyone who watched along. Make sure to head over to thenational.scot, where you can get access to all of our content from the past 3 days, and we've still got our live blog up and running if you want to go back through what's been going on throughout the day as it happened. And as always, thank you for joining us, James. Thank you, and we'll see you later.
Thank you.